Hello, Darkness here. Before we begin, so obviously by now you probably know Anthony SENTER'S being released. He's actually at a halfway house at this point. Now, I've heard rumors that aren't true about why Anthony's being released. First, I'm going to say he didn't help the authorities dig up any bodies. That's not why. And no, he didn't rat. They wouldn't have even tried to persuade him to cooperate anymore anyway, because everybody in that case is dead, incarcerated, or served a substantial amount of time and been released already. And they usually don't try to get you to cooperate after a certain point anyway, especially with his background. Anthony has remained firm about not snitching. He's been a model prisoner for 33 years. They said he's been a perfect prisoner in terms of doing everything he's supposed to do. Whether you agree about releasing him or don't agree, or whether I do or don't agree, or anybody else, doesn't matter. It is what it is. He's going to be released. A few months ago, I asked FBI agent Nelson, Walter Mack, and Detective Pergola, all of whom helped put him there, what they thought about Anthony being released. They didn't know at the time, and even Capici, I don't think, knew at the time. A federal attorney, Mack, and Capici have since investigated Anthony's release, and the answer is quite simple. Anthony SENTER'S been a perfect, ideal prisoner for the last 30 years. Now, I'm going to read you some statements. These statements are coming directly from Detective Pergola and FBI agent Nelson, as well as Mack's response. And I'm also going to tell you what Robert Denome, whose brother Richie was killed by Anthony, and he was devastated by that, what they all think, and as well as what Walter Mack thinks. Then I'll give you my opinion on the matter and leave you to form your own. Responding to me in an email, Agent Anthony Nelson, prefers to be called FBI Agent Anthony Nelson. He loves the FBI, and he's very proud of his work, which I would be too. Anyway, I'm off topic. The question for your podcast and how I feel concerning Anthony SENTER'S upcoming release from prison. It may be true, as you stated, that Anthony SENTER is now at low risk to society and has been in prison since Ghostbusters 2 was released. That's obviously responding to the things I said before. And you were only in your single digits when he went to prison. But he committed unforgivable crimes by human standards, crimes that many would believe were worthy of the death penalty. I'll let God, if he exists, decide if those crimes are forgivable in his eyes. I'm not a fan of the death penalty, but not because of moral issues. I've always believed that someone like SENTER would suffer much greater pain spending the rest of his life in prison, reflecting back in horrendous regret, and the pain he inflicted upon other people as well as himself. As I've told you before, neither I nor anyone else, for the matter, could possibly know for sure if an afterlife actually exists, so I've always been mindful that this may be the only world we will ever know. For that reason, I was glad that there had been some degree of justice and fairness meted out to SENTER and the remaining members of their Mayo crew by having them spend the rest of their lives in prison without the possibility of parole. Obviously, there are some people who feel differently and believe that prison is simply a device for reform and not the dual purpose of punishment. So although I'm not happy about SENTER'S release from a physical prison, I am confident he will remain confined to the prison and the regrets within him, without the possibility of release. Very poignant and well-thought-out statement from Agent Anthony Nelson. Frank Pergola, he's pissed about this. He says psychopaths don't change their spots any more than leopards do. I wrote Robert Denome. I was a little worried about how he'd feel about it. Richie's death almost killed Robert. When I asked him, he said, "No, not upset. It is what it is, and Quentin, I really fear no one. Fuck with my family, and I don't have to be gangster. It would come natural. I'll hit you up later." Now, Walter Mack and I agree that he's a low-risk reoffender, and so he's reformed in that sense, model prisoner. I suspect he is reformed and a very different person than he used to be, but I have to be a little bit agnostic or not, because I would like to talk to him in the future if I get a chance. So I suspect he probably is. He'd have to go through huge hurdles to get where he is, but I would be objective, in talking to him. And I believe that, now that he's free, before he's condemned, if he really is reformed, then I don't see any point of condemning anymore. That doesn't matter whether he should have gotten out or not. He is. Um, so he should be given a chance in society if he hasn't shown any acts of violence or anything. I've always thought Roy was a major problem for his behavior. Roy and Casso later on. Now, one last thing. Strong Island Finest, and I am really, really going to make a priority of thanking my fans who find some little small thing. There's so much information I'm dealing with here on top of this book now, which is coming along really, really well. I'm 4 out of 500 pages into it. Lots and lots of new information. If you think Roy, most of it's been covered, I'm sorry, I keep seeing the same things being told online and online, or by fakes by two people I'm not going to even name who are just making stuff up. That people have said, well, this is being so this has been done already. Hey, I'm the one who started it. I'm finishing my story, and I have tons of new information in my book. So they didn't do many of the hits. There is a lot. And so this is the complete story as I'm telling it. And I do the best I can to be accurate, and I correct myself if I get anything wrong. And Strong Island Finest here caught me. I accidentally put a picture up in which I confused Henry Borelli for one of Joey Testa's brothers. Duh, and I should have known that. Thank you so much, Strong Island Finest. You'll also get a thanks in the credits when the credits come up. So, anybody see something? Hey, look, my ego comes second to doing an accurate and good piece of work, the best piece of work I can do. Now, we can begin. Evening, Rikers Island, hospital ward. Nino Gaggi lounged back in his bed, the bullet still lodged in his neck, a bandage covering his collar. His doting wife Rose came in and embraced him, worried sick. His nephew Dominic Montiglio was with her. They had to prove that they were family in order to get in, show IDs, and so forth. There was a guard outside the hospital room. Nobody unrelated was getting through unless they worked there. By now, the authorities understood who Nino Gaggi was, thanks to FBI agent Anthony Nelson and Detective Kenny McCabe in their Veterans and Friends escapades. Not only did the authorities understand they were dealing with a high-ranking mob boss, a Gambino capo, they also knew Nino Gaggi just killed 2 people and tried to kill a cop. They just had to prove it to a jury, so they knew it too.